Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. We're talking all about the inauguration today. I bet many of you watched it, so we're asking what did you think? And we are happy to be watching or talking tonight with political science professor Dr. John Weil from MTSU. So let's just go right to the phones here. Plenty of calls. Let's go to Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, what's on your mind?
Well, I want to address what Ronnie said, but first, I've kind of got, I guess they're more rhetorical questions than questions, but, this whole YMCA song thing, when that song came out, it was a real popular song. Everybody was crazy about it, and then it came out that it was used as the gay national anthem, and, I'm just wondering, was that to celebrate Roy Cohen, Trump's mentor? I still haven't figured that one out. Now, they played YMCA constantly. That was like his theme song kind of deal. So
and when Trump was done speaking today, it
that's the first song that queued up. So I'm like, is that the Hail Mary to Roy Cohen, who taught him all the dirty tricks? Him and Roy Shine, his boyfriend, he got out of the army, during the Korean War. But anyway, as they went and chased communists at all the romantic spots on the globe. But, I don't have any respect whatsoever for Roy Cohen. But, the other thing is, one of the guys that was screaming, I saw a video in the past few days on TV, was screaming, "Your boss sent us here." Now, Professor, you can address this, but I'm going to ramble on here. But I'm not aware that the President of the United States is the boss of Congress. I thought that was separation of powers. And as far as this mob representing Republicans, these people are in a class of their own. Not all Republicans are like that. A guy showed up today basically by himself, I guess, with a friend of his from Athens, Tennessee. And I thought that was kind of ironic. And here we go addressing what Ronnie was questioning. In 1947 in Athens, Tennessee, they literally did steal the vote. They were beating up both black and white people, old white people, telling them how to vote. And then they took the ballot boxes, and a literal riot broke out where they used dynamite. These were World War II veterans, to get the ballot boxes back in Athens, Tennessee. And these were not right-wing people or left-wing people. These were Americans that had served in the military, and they were tired of the corruption. Now, our country, a lot of people didn't know about the Tulsa riots. That was the first time that our U.S. government bombed its own citizens. And then there was a mayor in Philadelphia here back in the 80s that literally, a black mayor that bombed from the air neighborhood because these guys were like the same kind of guys, but they were black that you saw with these militia groups up at the Capitol. They were doing that kind of thing. So Kent State back in 1970, those college kids were protesting the war, and they got mowed down. And the American people were absolutely shocked that we murdered our own. So, when you're a mayor, it's a lot different than being the president. It's very micro small, and you might know some of these people, and being in the Guard too, when the state goes against its own people, it's a very fine line you cross.
So your bottom line, what are you saying?
I'm trying to say that it's relative to what's going on in the situation. What happened in Nashville, the way people talk, Nashville was burnt to the ground. There was riots everywhere. And not every city was the same. And I really think if Seattle, if they had gone after those people, there were so many militia types mixed into that crowd that had been infiltrated that I think it would have been an abomination if they start going after people in those tight quarters. And they had to worry about government buildings.
You think it's totally different, the riot at the Capitol versus the protests in Seattle? I'll give you an example. And now, I'm going to give you one more minute, just really quickly.
The guy Justin, you had him on your show, the guy that was protesting forced statues. Okay, they were going to arrest him for that police car vandalism. He said all he did was stand up on it. And my point is, Diane Nash, after the dynamiting, the next day she walked quietly to the city hall. She did not do anything to citizens' property whatsoever. I take issue with that. He should have never stood up on the police car.
Okay, so it depends. All right, I'm going to cut you off here, Lucy. Okay, so it depends on the situation. Boy, Ronnie's comment got a lot of people to call in, and it's because that's been the kind of the back and forth argument. What do you want to say after hearing Lucy?
I mean, she said so much and some really good stuff. She's right that the president is not the boss of Congress. There are three coordinate branches. He does have a special obligation to execute, to enforce the law, which I think he did not do during the riots. The mayor, good. It was a very volatile situation with a very extreme group. Good, I think, was actually a very decent man who made a decision which, in retrospect seems fairly harsh. What she says about suppressing votes certainly has occurred in our history. It was a great story recently from 1898 when in North Carolina they elected a majority of the legislature that was pro-African American rights, and there was a major riot. They burned the building down. People resigned, and they brought in a new Redeemer so-called government.
Wow.
To enforce segregation. So things like this have happened in the past. I think the point that she does make that I like a lot is it's easy to sit particularly in a professorial chair and be judgmental, especially when it comes to state and local situations where you have to measure. Yes, sometimes force is appropriate, but sometimes, particularly if you have conflicting groups, you may end up with far more bloodshed than if you just step aside and let things play themselves out.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Let's go to Dustin. Hello, Dustin. Are you there, Dustin?
Yeah. Hey, Dustin.
Yeah, good. Go ahead.
I just this inciting riot thing there. I'm just, what they saying Trump did. I'm trying to figure it out. If this fella, Mr. Chelling, can answer my question, he was doing a terrible thing, I guess, what everybody says, and I hate everything happened like that. But what's your opinion on when back here a few days ago that Maxine Waters made her statement at calling people out and just tell them, if it's a Trump supporter, just, let them know they're not welcome. And if you could give me a straightforward answer there, I'd really appreciate, Mr. John, the Maxine Waters thing. How does that fit in the book, sir? Thank you very much.
Okay. I've certainly seen Maxine Waters. Now, she's a congresswoman who's a big Democrat and said some very, I guess, anti-Republican things. You've seen some video of her, but so okay, go ahead. I'll let you answer, Dr.
Well,
Wall.
I mean, it goes back actually to what Lucy just said. Do I think that everybody who marched on the Capitol, represented Republicans? Absolutely not. I think there were some people there who probably left in disgust, when they saw people breaking windows and, pulling down American flags and putting up Trump flags. I think some people had enough and went home. I don't think, Trump has never gotten, he's had a majority of support, arguably, of the Republicans. He's never gotten a majority of the popular vote in the United States. And I think Republicans are better than the president that they've had. I think we've been headed down the wrong path, and frankly, the sooner they turn in a different direction, become more inclusive, I think the better chance they're going to have to recover the presidency in 4 years.
And here we go. I mean, we have the callers on this show saying, yeah, this was bad, but what about this on the other side?
Right.
And this on the other side justifies this on my side. And we're seeing it from both sides. Right. But when you have people up there trying to talk about unity, and the other thing that gets thrown out is, well, you're doing this, so that gives me the right to do this. Do we ever get unity?
Well, I mean, if Maxine Waters is spewing, rhetoric that tends to divide rather than unite, that's not helpful any more than it is if Donald Trump does it. And I think what we need to say is, if we don't think it right on one side, then we can't say, but that side did it, so we're going to do it too. That we're never going to move forward as the United States, if we take that approach.
And Maxine Waters is a congressperson.
Right.
President Trump was the president.
No, that's right.
But yeah, those are good points. Let's go to Joey. Hello, Joey.
Yeah, hey, how you doing? Hey, I live in a small town here in Tennessee, and I noticed a lot of the people that aren't wearing masks are Trump supporters. And also, they're real adamant about Trump thinking he lost the election. And I'm just scared a little bit, and I don't know if I should even try to talk to them or, how to handle them or, they're not going to give up, their team. And they're not wearing masks either. So, see what y'all think of that.
It was interesting. One of Biden's first executive orders had to do with masks. He is requiring use of masks and social distancing in all federal buildings, on federal lands, and by federal employees and contractors. So this is not going to impact towns and cities and that kind of thing.
I think it affects interstate commerce. Like if you were on a passenger train or a bus, Congress, the federal government has power over interstate commerce. I think what we need leadership by example. And, orders, I do think it's sort of tragic that people are huddled down together in Congress, concerned about being killed by rioters, and there's some in their midst who are too vain, apparently, to wear a mask. I don't think, one thing I'm really proud of our president, Dr. McPhee at MTSU, because, when we had the decision about whether we could have some on-campus classes, it was yes. And then the faculty member said, well, does that mean, are you going to require that students and faculty members wear masks? And the answer was yes. If we're going to have any semblance of normalcy, we got to have some rules that will protect all of us. I don't consider it to be, some kind of loss of manhood to put on a mask. As far as I'm concerned, that's following the golden rule. That's treating others as, I don't want other people infecting me, and, God help me if I get infected, I sure don't want to infect anyone else.
So we'll see. That has definitely been political, and I bet the last caller, that is something you face. And so, yeah, that's interesting. Some other executive orders that were signed, I'll just read as we go to break here. We're getting back in the World Health Organization. Biden is directing the government to rejoin the World Health Organization Donald Trump withdrew from earlier this year. We're also rejoining the Paris Climate Accord. Ending the Muslim travel ban. It's been called the Muslim travel ban. It's one of the first acts of the Trump administration. Banned foreign nationals from 7 mostly Muslim countries from entering. A watered-down version was held up by the Supreme Court. So those are some of the actions. I'll read some others later. We'll take a break now, then we'll take some more calls, but that just gives some example of some of the executive orders. Take a break again. Be back right after this.